two guys. Still probably the most gifted footballer I played with. Damien Duff was another genius with a football. Got tagged a bit of a utility player because I was actually a striker.
I think you
at
played
that time.
for 45 minutes with a broken leg as well.
I did at Arsenal. I didn't want to come off. It's definitely a drug for Roy because he said it on a few occasions that, just keep sucking him back into the game. I still get butterflies when I'm setting a session up and about to deliver because I feel that pressure. That look at John McGinn playing at Hibs a few years ago. Aston Villa take the plunge, and now he's, all sorts of figures being talked about and moved to top clubs in the English Premier League.
Hello listeners, and welcome back to yet again another episode of the Beautiful Game podcast. As always, I'm your host Budge. I'm joined by my faithful two co-conspirators Dot and Dej. We are on the road again, the TBG boys like an away day. And our travels have taken us to Epsom today. And we're joined by a very, very special guest. Gents, how are we feeling about this episode?
I'm excited. I'm good, Budge. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm raring to go. This has been one that we've been planning and wanting to get through for a long time. So we're happy to finally be here and be in the company of this very special guest, aren't we, Dej?
Oh, I can't wait. This is someone that, I watched my first professional football match watching this man and, to get him in the live and flesh, I can't wait. Let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. So our special guest today was capped 23 times by the Republic of Ireland. He's currently a coach for the Scottish national team. He's played right at the apex of the game in the Premier League. He started off his career at Millwall. He's obviously also played for West Brom and Blackburn Rovers. He endeared himself to the Rovers fans on that fateful day, the 31st of December 2005, with that master blaster that made him folklore around those parts of town. Without further ado, we welcome Stephen Reid to the platform.
Welcome. Finally pinned me down.
Finally.
I know, I've been messaging you, been having some back and forth, and I'm happy to get this across the line, and we're looking forward to speaking to you.
No, good stuff. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for taking time out. We really appreciate
100% we do, man. So let's get the show on the road. We want to start from the very beginning, Steve, to take us back, roll back the golden years. To when you first started out in your career. We obviously mentioned that you started out in the youth ranks at Millwall. What was that like? Have you always been, we hear stories of people that say, they were kicking a ball as soon as they came out of their mother's womb, sort of thing. Was that the same sort of story for you as well?
Yeah, pretty much. Grew up in pretty local in Kingston. Older brother, 3 years older. So, I often speak with players that I played with and against. Part of my pro license was a study on top players, Premier League players, and what it takes to get there. And a lot of them say older brother to play with, so played on the street. Him and his friends used to kick me all over the place, used to toughen me up. But I was obsessed. I remember watching Italy 90, the World Cup, the opening ceremony when they released a massive, I still remember it to this day, released a massive balloon at the San Siro, and I was, standing on the street waiting for it to come over the house. I was, recording every game. So, just really obsessed from a young age. Loved playing, loved watching it. If there was a game on the telly, that was a treat. Obviously, back in those days when there wasn't much football on the TV. And just loved the game, but it wasn't until I was about 11 that I had trials for Surrey and Kingston, local county and borough, that I got picked up and invited to train down at Millwall. So it wasn't like now you can be picked up 6-7 years of age. So 11 now is seems quite late, but that was the moment. Just signed schoolboy forms and progressed that way, training once a week at a local centre of excellence, and on school holidays you're going and spend a couple of weeks with the YTS players and being in and around the training ground. So it was a great start for me. It was a great start.
So growing up, who was your favourite players? Which players did you idolise and they made you think, I want to play football because of him?
Probably only one really, and most of my generation's the same. John Barnes was the man, and obviously in the 80s, Liverpool were pretty much the dominant force. So, living down here, I guess you could call me a bit of a glory hunter. but to be honest, it was probably whoever John Barnes was playing for as well, in a way. He was my idol. You still remember him wearing his Diadora Brazils. I wanted to wear them because back in those days, obviously, you'd just get Match or Shoot magazine, and all you could see really was what football boots a player had on. Now you get access to their whole lives with all the social media. So, he was my footballing idol, and from an early age, I was a Liverpool fan. And remember it was 88, 89, the title race when it went obviously down to the wire at Anfield, and that hurt me. That hurt me that night when Michael Thomas with that winner at the end. So it was just something that just felt like it was in my blood from a young age, just kicking the ball around.
Did you feel also, because obviously you hear from footballers and they talk about having to be very disciplined. And I remember watching an interview from Ryan Giggs, and he was speaking about the fact that he hadn't eaten a chocolate bar for about 12 years or something like that. So was that also something that you had to implement in your lifestyle from a very early age, in terms of being disciplined with the things that you're eating, with your sleep, with the amount that you're training and that kind of thing?
A little bit further on down the line, but I still remember my mum would drop a little comment in: if you want to be a footballer, can't do that, or do this or do that, or eat that, but not to that extent. When I was sort of that 11 to sort of 15 mark, you're still a kid, and you're still just enjoying your football. You're playing. Love my school football, love my Sunday football. Had a mixture as well. I think now as well we're getting a little bit of a problem for me that players that are at clubs at a young age can only play for them clubs. They don't get all different. I was playing against local kids that were my brother's age, were older, everyone that lived around the same way. You're playing against 16, 17-year-olds, and you're 11, 10 years old. So just things like that helped in my development. But as I got a little bit older, into thinking you can get paid for playing football, it can be a job and a career, that's when I was disciplined. I was obsessed, and that's probably something that's come to bite me in the arse a little bit further down the line, with not having interest in other things, because it was all about being a footballer for me. Early age, that was it. That's all I wanted to be. Studied at school. The schools were always good in terms of keeping your feet on the ground.
Were you a grade A student?
Pretty much, to be fair. No, I did all right. But I knew as soon as secondary school was done, that was it. I'm signing YTS at Millwall, and the only studies really up until coaching badges and that kind of thing was I was just head focused on becoming a footballer and giving it everything I could. So I left school with decent GCSEs because, to be fair, the school wouldn't allow. If you weren't doing your schoolwork, then you wouldn't be playing football on a Saturday. 100%. Or if you didn't fancy playing rugby in the rugby team, then you're not going to play in the football team. So it was a good school, good teachers that would inspire you as well. Would love their football, love their sport.
So they're very supportive of you.
They just, and that's massive. If you get teachers that can inspire you and support 100%. You, and
makes all the difference, doesn't it?
It can be. And I was lucky in all of that support from my parents, in my dad. Up until I kind of sort of signed YTS, he would drive me every game at the weekend. And that's another thing that's massive. And I was again lucky that I had that support behind me.
Stephen, I just want to hark back to Millwall. This is a bit of a touchy subject, but I remember back in the day, I grew up on Old Kent Road, and Dej lived very, very close to me, and I know Millwall had some great black players in the 1970s, Trevor Lee and Phil Walker, who were like iconic figures at the club. But one of the things that, growing up when I was in the local area was when Millwall lose, a black man can't walk on Old Kent Road. coming through during that time, how was it? Was this over-exaggerated? Was this over-inflated at the time? And why do you think Millwall had that stigma back then?
I think there's obviously been incidents in the past where there has been those types of incidents at the ground, and it's been dealt with, but it's just been a club that's had that reputation for a long time. Coming through, and at such a young age as I was then, I didn't really know anything about it. I was just enjoyed my football. It's only when you sort of become a little bit older and you get to know what certain things are in terms of racism and racist organisations and clubs that have got a reputation, and obviously that reputation was there with Millwall, and it was. Don't get me wrong, not for that reason was it a tough place to play there, but it's a club that demands 110% on the pitch.
You have to be a special type of character to be able to play for.
You have to be. I think sometimes you have to take it into account as well in sort of not recommending a player to Neil Harris when he's the manager, and we would have conversations about players, and he might ask me about, but you've got to be prepared to and equipped mentally and physically to play at Millwall, because if you're not giving everything every weekend, every Saturday, then they're going to give you stick.
Of course.
And rightly so. But there was obviously, going back to the what we was talking about, the club has always had that reputation, but behind the scenes there's a lot of people doing a lot of good work at the club. I've from my own personal point of view, I can speak highly enough about the club. When I was there was one or two incidents at times where, I might hear something, and, at times my dad sort of going to the, not at all times, I didn't feel comfortable sometimes if we had a game. And when you're actually playing in a game, you're not really aware of too much of what's going on.
Yeah.
But there might be an incident that's in the press after a game, and I'm thinking, my dad sat in the stand, weren't fully comfortable at times, but, from my own personal point of view though, there's a group of us that were lucky that we were given the opportunity, because the club went into financial trouble, and basically we all got thrown in because the club had no other option. I've just got good memories of being at the club, and I know he's working hard in all departments to try and eradicate the one or two idiots that you have had at times, and that you are always going to get.
Not just at Millwall, at every club.
No, of course. Of course. We're seeing it now more than ever at the minute. It's, we sort of think at times how well things are progressing in terms of racism and, the atmosphere at stadiums. But over the last couple of years, things have taken a downward turn. And, at the minute, it's a difficult situation, and it's something that needs to be addressed pretty quickly, because it seems to be getting a little bit out of hand.
So 100%. Like going backwards to Millwall, making your debut. So how did you find out, and how was that day, going out? Was it home or away?
It was actually made my first appearance was last day of the 97-98 season. Played Bournemouth at home. But I'd actually sort of been involved. Billy Bonds was manager at the time, and from the start, again, you do need to have that little bit of luck, but when he came in, it was like myself, Tim Cahill, Paul Eiffel, there was a group of us that he kind of liked. And it got to that last game of the season, and it was me and Tim Cahill came on to make our debuts, but a couple of minutes in, there's a pitch invasion to be there, so we had to come off the pitch. So I was like, I'm coming on my first league appearance in my career, and at the end of the game, the season had not been a successful one really, and there's a pitch invasion at the end, so we came off and then went back on. But I remember the feeling of being out there, really nervous going out there, but had a couple of nice touches, and after that
was looking... after a while. It's a good start.
Yeah, because I remember, the early 2000s were, the glory days for Millwall. I was born in Bermondsey. I'm a Bermondsey boy. And my first football club, my manager was a big Millwall fan. He would take us to games, and he was singing your song in the car. Hey, Stevie, Reid. It was really, really good. And we were in our parks, and we could hear, the Let 'Em Come song, and we'd be like, Millwall have scored. It was proper, massive. So how was it being part of that Millwall side that, got into the playoffs and finished fourth?
It was unbelievable. we was lucky that we had a good group of young players, but we also had good experience in the team as well. As soon as I sort of started my YTS and got involved full time at the club at sort of 15, 16, Bobby Bowery was, great to me. A lot of the senior players were good influences. Never felt that there was any animosity towards the younger players. They were just there to help. Sometimes you get you get it sometimes where you get the young players coming through and the older players feel a little bit threatened, but that wasn't the case there. And yeah, we had good guidance, good advice, throughout that team. Sort of Dyche and Bobby Bowery was good to me. Stuart Nethercutt at the back. Tony Warner came in from Liverpool. Then we had that sort of age group in between, like Mark Birchams, and
he's just being appointed the Bahamas.
Yeah, I spoke to him the other day actually. So he's gonna have nice lifestyle coming up.
That weather,
a couple of scouting trips for me, I think. But yeah, we just had a good blend of experience, youth, players that could put their foot in, be aggressive, but could play as well. So everything sort of come together nicely, and we got that promotion from League One into the Championship, and then almost went all the way through, but for that last minute goal for Birmingham.
Who's the manager then? Mark McGee, was it?
Yeah, it was Mark McGee, and it sort of did feel a little bit like if it wasn't going to be that season, that the team might fall apart. And then pretty soon after that, sort of I got my move, then Tim Cahill got his move, and then almost felt like that was the opportunity to get to the promised land, really, but never wasn't meant to be. But look back at that time, good success. So yeah, good memories of Millwall.
And you're a hero to many, but a villain to Wigan fans. It seemed to always score the wonder goal against them. What I wanted to ask you is, which one was your favourite, the Master Blaster at Blackburn Rovers, or the free kick at West Brom?
I think it'd probably be, there's one at Millwall actually. There was one goal at Millwall when we got promoted from League One, and we beat Oldham 5-0 last game of the season. So that was one of my, but probably that Blackburn one for different reasons. In it being a struggle when I first went there, and I was in the Millwall dressing room one day, and then I get the transfer up, and you're in the dressing room with, Coley and Dwight York, Brad Friedel, and Flitcroft, and all of these sort of household names. And it took me a while to adapt to moving away from home, to feeling that I belonged to play at that level. So it was probably a year or so. It took me a year or so to settle in, and actually the last bit of that settling in was probably that goal against Wigan, where I actually felt
I've arrived.
I belong at this level, playing centre midfield every week,
bossing it,
doing all right. Played 33 league games that season. I think all starts as well, and that was probably the moment that I actually felt that I belonged at that level. So it was more than just a goal in a way.
So just very quickly, how was it mentally? Because as fans, we're so quick to say ex-player's a flop, or we spent big money on him, he's flopping, he's not performing. How is it mentally? How tough is it, moving from your home, going to Blackburn, settling in the dressing room with big names? How did it feel?
And what aspect of that move was the most difficult for you in terms of adjusting?
Probably the actual performance itself, in actually having that, because I've always been my worst enemy in terms of overthinking games and putting myself under too much pressure going into the games. I had help along the way for that in terms of sports psychologists. I used to see Steve Peters and
who worked at Liverpool as well.
I used to, when I was at Blackburn, I had a little difficult spell. So I saw Steve for some sessions, and another guy called Damien Hughes, who are now sort of quite big, big hitters in the industry. But yeah, that was my kind of, never been embarrassed by it as well. It's whatever you need to try and get that elite performance, and help me massively. Still beat myself up now. Don't get me wrong. If it's a coaching session, everything needs to be spot on.
Perfect.
Some of the things that get you to the top can not kill you along the way as well, but you sometimes you're your own worst enemy in that way.
And that's why we're like, sorry, Steve, that's why we're like massive fans on this podcast for the Heads Up campaign, where people should speak out and feel comfortable if they're suffering from some mental adversity.
Yeah, and I've always been open and honest about that during my career. And, you know, when I left Crystal Palace a little bit late, I needed to take a little bit of time out from the game and, you know, just sort of enjoy life a bit more, spend some time with the family, which is obviously far more important than football anyway. But yeah, that initial period at Blackburn was tough, and you are away from home, and you've got to perform. You've come in and not replaced big name players that have left, like Damien Duff and David Dunn that have been at the club, but that was more pressure on me. And like I say, after that, it was almost like a light bulb moment. That goal went in. Couldn't wait for the next game. And when you've got that confidence, the difference between it not being there and being there is massive.
Do you know what? It's a really interesting point that you raised about that level of perfection that you seek, and like wanting to make sure that everything's right. Because not too long ago we had Michael Bill come on the podcast, and he's obviously a coach down at Rangers. Yeah. And we asked the question, what difference, if any, is there between people that he's worked with that have played before and then gone into coaching versus people that have just gone straight into coaching and management? And he said exactly what you mentioned there about it's the standards. It's the expectation every single session. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be, it's the passion, it's the desire, it's that hunger to go and be consistent at that level. So, you hit the nail on the head with that.
And with the coach's head on for a minute, that's what the players expect now as well. They expect sessions to be organised, sort of slick. You know, you're not hanging around waiting for the next little bit. That's what they expect. They're super professional now. You know, all the boys now playing at all levels of the game, you know, look after themselves, all look in good shape, all are lean, all are, you know, obviously the athleticism side of the game is massive. But from a playing point of view, I was, you know, don't get me wrong, at that stage, in actual fact, when I first signed for Blackburn, there was still a little bit of a, probably won't go as far as to say drinking culture, but we enjoyed a night out as well. You know, looking back at it now,
enjoying the fruits of your labour.
Those
London nights.
Manchester. It was up in Manchester. But now, looking back at it now, probably wouldn't drink if I was to go through it all again. Wouldn't drink alcohol because, you know, the effects as you sort of get older and you get to know your body a little bit more, and the sports science come into the game, but. Mark Hughes actually came in when I was at Blackburn and kind of made a few changes to the squad. So I think he maybe saw that a little bit. And
what took the sort of bad influences out of the dressing room?
Not bad, all good people. That my whole time at Blackburn, really good, you know, good senior pros. Everyone got on well. Everyone worked hard. But I think he just maybe wanted to go down a more athletic, fitter group. That was when Prozone first started getting introduced, so we was really heavily into the pro zone at the club. We'd have meetings on our physical stuff from the game, and if we out sprint, if we outrun the opposition, the impact that's going to have on the result of the game. So that was my first experience of that, and we became, to get out of the position we was in when he came into the club, you know, we became fit, strong, ugly team to. I don't think anyone at that time. We actually got labelled when we played Chelsea, and I think Aaron Mokoena, I think he broke Arjen Robben's ankle in the game, and we sort of got a bit of a label of being.
So like the modern Stoke, the way Stoke was seen, you know, the
well, that kind of, you know, not a nice place to go, and I didn't mind that as well. And that's something that was useful to us in people coming up to Ewood Park and not enjoying it. We always felt if we was at least drawing the game with 20 minutes to go, we was in with a good chance of winning that game, or definitely not getting beat, because we felt that we could run all over the opposition.
I mean, that Blackburn side, you know, David Bentley, Bellamy, Friedel, Nelson at the back, you knew that going to Ewood Park, you're going to have to earn every single corner. I think you finished 6th and 7th in those seasons qualifying for Europe. So how was it being part of that group?
Yeah, amazing times, and that's when, you're on top of the world. You finish 6th in the Premier League, unfancied team in a way to do it, but yeah, some top quality teammates sort of there. And if I was to pick, best 11 I've played with, there'd definitely be a few out of that team. We was lucky that we had sort of Bellamy, we had Benny McCarthy, we had Santa Cruz. So every season we had a goal scorer in the team. Obviously Bentley wwent for big money to Tottenham, and two guys, still probably the most gifted footballer I played with.
Technically,
smoked like a chimney, but he was honest, some player.
What about Savage? Was he quality? He gets stick.
Robbie, yeah. Do you know what? He was so effective in his game and what he did, and his ability to get around the pitch and upset oppositions, like really upset them. There's a few games where it got a little bit out of hand in the tunnels and one or two stadiums, but
bit of afters,
he's good teammate, good big character in the training ground, and obviously gone on to a big success in the media world as well.
That actually leads me to the next question I was going to ask you. The best player you've played with and played against?
With, probably as a pure footballer, would be Tugai.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. Unbelievable with the ball. But sort of in terms of all round, Roy Keane's got to be in there as one, just as a winner. What he took onto the training field alone and then into the games. Damien Duff was another genius with a football. Yeah. But there's so many. There's so many, but I'd probably have to say those two as a little bit of a balance between totally gifted footballer and a Premier League legend.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to ask a question about nowadays.
Didn't you say who was the best against?
Oh exactly. Yeah.
Well, probably it'd have to be Ronaldo, I guess.
Ooh.
Yeah, when he was at Man United, I was at Blackburn and see him line up on the wing, and you're in for a tough afternoon, that's for sure. Yeah, probably. He's done all right as well. He's not done bad.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask is there's a lot of comparison, people comparing, the Invincible squad to the Liverpool team now, and you sort of played in that transition period as well to the modern game. So let's say, for instance, who would you back between the Invincible team and this current Liverpool side?
It's a big question. Yeah, big question. I think both have got a mixture of everything. I know what I do know, that Arsenal team was... Vieira's probably one of the toughest as well to play against, because at that point in my career I was centre midfield. Vieira was centre midfield, so it's had everything: strength, size, power, could play, could head it, could score goals, could defend. So it's just had the whole package. And you had, Thierry Henry at Arsenal at that time, and
doing magic tricks with the ball.
Yeah, but I don't know. I genuinely couldn't give an answer to that one. The Liverpool team now is one of the best I've seen. The front three and the balance in what they've got in midfield and experience and Van Dijk and the fullbacks. I don't know. I'd probably have to just sit on the fence and get splinters. Yeah, it'd have to be. But I think Vieira would get in that, maybe in that central midfield slot for Liverpool. He's probably centre midfield point of view. When I was playing, he was the toughest opponent.
Okay.
And sort of final question on your playing career before we talk about your coaching career. Of course, you plied your trade for the majority of your career at centre mid, but you obviously played at fullback as well. And I guess I really wanted to find out, did playing in one position help you in terms of your understanding of another position? What was it like when you were just playing with your mates and whatnot? Perfect example, Dyche here is a left back, but when he's playing with the lads, he fancies himself as a number 10. So was it similar for you as well, sort of thing?
I guess I was quite lucky in my career that I played, got tagged a bit of a utility player, because I was actually a striker as a youth team player at Millwall.
Right.
And then a lot of the time when you're a striker, when you make your debut, you end up playing right or left wing. You're just sort of filling in a position because you can run a little bit and got a little bit of pace. But then drifted into centre midfield. I remember playing a game at left back when I was at Millwall. So I think managers kind of saw in me an intelligence tactically in a way to fill in different positions. I think I ended up basically going back to right back because of all the surgeries I had and the effect that had on my body. And playing at right back wasn't, in the teams I played in, as physically demanding. But that helped me as well. Could see the game, could see the picture. Always quite a big talker on the pitch, sort of organising sort of my wide man in front of me or centre backs, giving good information. So that was probably a good transition for me into right backs, into a little bit of a coaching kind of role as well, because I could see the whole picture, the whole game, and and hopefully influence it from there.
You mentioned something as well about injuries. That's something that's not really spoken about in the modern game. People sort of sidestep the issue. Suffering, I think maybe had 10 surgeries or up to that.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, so how does that feel psychologically? Because people don't really talk about it. We see someone like Jack Wilshere in the modern game having his, fair few of injury knocks.
Getting trolled.
Getting trolled online. I'm sure back then there wasn't, that much vitriol towards you. But how is it psychologically dealing with these?
It's tough. You sort of look back at it now and there must have been moments of real suffering in there, because I did my cruise shirt, so I was out for 7-8 months, came back for 2 months, and then I was out for 11 months. Had ankle reconstruction, but you kind of just get into some kind of zone, I think, where you just get on with it in a way. Again, with the help of sports psychologists, that was another important time for me in terms of getting back to, or believing that you're going to get back to a certain level when you look down and your legs completely shot to pieces.
I think you played for 45 minutes with a broken leg
as
well.
I did at Arsenal. I didn't want to come off because I give a penalty away. So I didn't want to come off in that game. I thought initially it was my knee. So I was thinking, sort of, here we go again. But somehow, and that actually scared, sort of thinking back to it, that scared me a little bit, to be honest. The ability to play through that is actually quite scary.
Yeah.
That
in terms of your own health and your, what you might deal with. It's incredible when I look back at it.
It's crazy because the adrenaline whilst playing football can
because the next day
take you through.
Yeah, the next 2 days after, because we had a Christmas do actually in London after the Arsenal game.
I was going to ask you about this actually
So I wanted to go on that. Fuzzy tweeted that. I think, what's your favourite moment from me?
I trust
and Fuzzy said that story, and he's right, because if you're injured, you can't really go out on the Christmas do. So I kept it quiet, and then on the Monday morning,
you were done.
It was really struggling.
Let's move on to the coaching element. Earlier on the podcast, you said tactically you always looked at the bigger picture when you were playing football. Towards the end of your career, did you ever think you'll go into coaching?
Probably when I had my first knee injury, when I'd done my cruise shirt, you kind of sort of think, well, this might not go on forever. At that point, did I think that I was going to go into that? I just probably wanted to give myself the option, going forward.
So would you pursuing your badges at the time?
Yeah, so after that, I started my level 2 when I was at Blackburn, then later went on to the B licence, and then the A licence, and then all badged up now with the pro licence as well. So I've got them all. But it was probably when West Brom, when sort of Roy Hodgson came in, and I started to think about the game a little bit more, started to take a little bit more notice of sessions and why we're doing sessions, and then that sort of grew a little bit more when Steve Clarke came in.
So how was it under Roy Hodgson? Because he's a manager that I would say has been stigmatized with a bad reputation. I know he had, troublesome times at England and Liverpool, and that's kind of like ruined the perception of Roy Hodgson. But how was it on a day-to-day working with him? Because for me, he's a top manager.
I think it has for some people. I think for people that appreciate and know the game and appreciate the jobs that he's done at clubs, I don't think you can ever tarnish, in my eyes anyway, because to this day, and even when I was at Palace, still the most enthusiastic football man that I've come across in the game. At that age now, he's just signed obviously a new deal to go into his 74th year, I think it's going to be. So it's just incredible, the enthusiasm. You know, he's still on the grass every day. There's some managers that might roll out halfway through a session or maybe not even come in some days, but he's in. And to be doing it at that age, you've got to love the game.
Yeah, I can actually buttress your point, because me and Dejan spent some time at Palace training ground, and he was the last one out. He was the last one out.
I think it was Ray Lewington. Then, like 15 minutes after, it was Hodgson, and we sort of said to each other, "Wow, to be doing this sort of job."
And it's just got a good personality around the training. Always checks the physio room, see how all the injured players are getting on. Just little details like that. Good atmosphere in the training ground, and ultimately he's a top coach. The detail that he gives the players, and it was a pleasure to work under him when I played at West Brom. So I've still found myself learning the game. I think I was 31 at the time, and working alongside him as a coach was a pleasure. And Ray Lewington as well was great experience for me.
Yeah, so what would you say his secret is for this longevity? Because to be managing for 40 odd years, you have to have, an innate hunger,
hunger,
football.
love of the game. I think it has to be the love of the game, because you hear some coaches and managers that will say there's no way they're going to be managing at 60 years old. But then it's a bit like a drug as well. It's definitely a drug for Roy, because he said it on a few occasions that, just keep sucking him back into the game. And he's just got that drive, desire, will to win, enthusiasm. I used to say to a couple of the players, how can the manager, be more enthusiastic than some of the players, and that's still the case. So he's obviously one or two jobs where he got a little bit of stick, but as far as I'm concerned, he's top class.
Also, another person you've played with, Sean Dyche. He's another manager that's having, universal success this season. So what is it about Sean Dyche that makes him, a top manager? Because we've seen throughout his time as a manager at Burnley, there's been some spells, winless runs, and he's come under scrutiny, but every single time he bounces back.
Yeah, I played alongside Dyche, and then actually my last year playing was under him. So that was a bit of a strange one in terms of that relationship, but I really enjoyed it from a physical point of view. I started to realise then that my days were numbered, especially looking at how the team trained every single day, the intensity and the energy they train with every single day was incredible. So from a physical point of view, that last season at Burnley was tough, but in terms of seeing how an environment at a football club should be, with everyone getting on, no egos, great atmosphere. That season was incredible, and still in touch with a few of the players from that squad now. But he's just got an ability to motivate. I remember the season that I was there, we spent majority of the season in that relegation battle and in the bottom three, but you'd come out of meetings feeling like you was challenging for a Champions League spot. Just got an unbelievable ability to motivate and to lift you. And it's no surprise to me the job he's done there in the last few years in keeping them in the Premier League.
So what do you think is strange that he's maybe not linked with, higher jobs? People kind of say maybe, his grovelly voice and his appearance maybe puts, these bigger clubs off. But do you think that's an unfair stigma that he's got? And do you think he can maybe do a job at at Everton or so?
Well, I think that's definitely it's definitely one of the reasons. I think if it was a foreign coach doing the same job, potentially they would have been given that opportunity. But no, he should be linked with some of these top jobs. The job he's done in keeping Burnley not just in the Premier League, but I think they finished, top 8 within that time, and again this season kicking on again. The success he's had has been unbelievable, and it'd be interesting to see whether that next step up does happen, because there's no one that deserves it with the job he's done there, and not just on the pitch, but you see the new training ground, it's up there with the best, just in actually helping to build a better infrastructure at the club in terms of all the little bits around it, because you see some clubs that spend a couple of years in the Premier League, a few years later the money's run out and there's nothing behind, no new training ground, no real academy set up. But that's a club that's grown on and off the pitch.
I know you've had some, other coaching roles at Reading as well under McDermott, and you helped out at AFC Wimbledon as well. So how are these experiences helped in aiding you to, where you are now?
A lot, I think, is the word. I started at Reading with Steve Clarke in League. He was in the Championship. So we had 2 years in the Championship, but with 3 different managers. Had that season with Yapstam at the end where we got to the playoff final and lost on penalties to Huddersfield, which was tough. But actually being involved in a game of that size was unbelievable, because it's biggest game in the world, really. That game to get into the Premier League was huge. But I actually had to sit back and actually tell myself to enjoy it as well. Yeah. When we got on the bus, when we were staying at the hotel, actually tried to enjoy the trip to Wembley and take in the occasion, because so many of these experiences in your career just kind of pass you by too quickly and you don't actually enjoy it. That's what I found. I didn't actually enjoy, or didn't allow myself to enjoy some of the best moments of my career. So now when these opportunities come, I try and soak it in. But after Reading, went to Palace for a year, had a great time working at the top level with some of the top players in the Premier League, like Wilf and Aaron Bissaka. Obviously went to Man United and working at that level. But equally, I love my time working at AFC Wimbledon.
It's the total contrast.
It is, but I loved it. Young players asking questions and quizzing you about different situations and what they can work on. Small staff mucking in together, cleaning the kit and cleaning the balls and struggling to find bits of equipment.
That's what football's all about.
Yeah, I loved it. Really loved it. And then back to one of my old clubs, West Brom as well. That was that strange situation where you're coaching players that you played with.
This is it, yeah. Because what I wanted to ask you is, how soon is too soon in terms of an ex-player going back to manage or coach at a club that they were previously playing at? We've obviously seen Arteta go back to Arsenal, Lampard go back to Chelsea, and in for Arteta, for example, he was in the team playing with Ozil, say, and he's obviously a big personality in that Arsenal dressing room. So it changes the dynamic a little bit, because then you've got to manage that, and I'm sure when you went back, there were still some players that you had previously played with. So was that challenging?
Not really, to be honest. I kind of, pretty soon after I became a coach at Reading, and I was finding my feet a little bit and kind of felt a little bit like a player still. There was a moment where I actually lost it pretty soon into pre-season, my first pre-season as a coach, and sent the players in from a training session, and that was kind of the line sort of there and then, where I'm on the other side now. But I think it all depends. I think as a player I was well respected at West Brom in sort of getting through the injuries and professionalism and performances as well. So I think if you've got that respect, it's never too soon. You might end up being younger than a lot of the players that you're going to coach and played with. But I think if you carry yourself in the right way and you've got that respect, you're off to a good start. But ultimately, you need to deliver good sessions and get results, because if you're not, then
pressure.
Yeah, then the pressure 100%. Builds, and then questions are asked whether you're up to it or not. You have to back it up as well.
100%.
I think that's the perfect segue into what you're doing at the moment. Obviously, we know you're the Scotland assistant manager, but before we dive into that, I just wanted to ask you, how is it working with Steve Clarke? Because this is a man that was, held as one of the best coaches in the world when he was at Chelsea and when he was at Liverpool. So on a day-to-day, how is it working, with him?
Well, that started obviously at Reading when I worked, and even as a player, when he was my manager when I was at West Brom. Sessions were organised from the start. We hit it off. I was used to go in his office and just speak one-on-one, like man-to-man, about how my body was feeling. I would never let a physio or doctor come down and pull me out of this, because usually what happens, you go in, you say to the physio how you're feeling, or doctor, and they will sort of bring the sheet down to the coaches, who's training, who's not. I'll just go in and see the manager if I didn't feel that I could train, and just tell him man to man that I was usually in a bad way actually with my knee. So I think he respected that. So we built that relationship, but coaching alongside him, the details incredible daily. So it's just another learning experience. And probably feel I feel a lot more comfortable now because that was my first coaching role.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't have a clue what I was doing really. I'd never
learning on the job.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
You are. You're dealing with international players, and you are learning on the job. But now I feel comfortable. I still get butterflies when I'm setting a session up and about to deliver, because I feel that pressure that it's, and you should do, that it's got to be a good session. It's got to flow. It's got to be sharp, because you're dealing with players that are at the top level.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I want to impress. I still want to impress the manager as well.
Of course.
I want to show my coaching abilities. I know he trusts me. And I want to deliver as well good coaching sessions to the players. And if it's not right, then don't worry about that. The gaffer will tell you pretty sharp. He looks like he will as well. When you see the pictures of him, he can look mean. He looks meaner than what he is. Sometimes people comment on that, but he's approachable and he's good man.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of elite players in that squad. Andy Robertson at Liverpool, Kieran Tierney, at Arsenal. You've got a lot of the Celtic and Rangers players. But there's one, young lad, that took the headlines this week. Billy Gilmour.
Billy the Kid.
Yeah, the manager was there. I was up in Scotland doing a bit of work with the analyst ahead of Israel and the potential two opponents in the final. So I went to a game up there, but luckily the manager went to that game, and he's definitely a player with a bright future, that's for sure.
In the squad for Israel?
I better speak to the manager first, but he's look at that performance against that opposition as well. To start the game and play like that is incredible. The confidence, not only from himself to perform like that, but you could see players wanting to give him the ball as well. Sometimes with younger players, there might be a reluctance to trust them with the ball, but every opportunity there, he was on the ball, looking to play forward, be positive. So if he carries on doing that, then obviously you can't ignore it, and he's a top player. But a lot of it, that's a position where we're really strong at the minute as well. We're blessed with really strong midfield positions at the moment, and and hopefully everyone's gonna click in time for the Israel game on the 26th of March.
I just wanted to ask you, I know Dej was talking about, the top players in the camp, and how is it working with Andrew Robertson, who's a Champions League winner and soon to be a Premier League winner, John McGinn, who I rate as one of the best midfielders in the Premier League? When you see their drive and determination every day, does that just motivate you to, get better at your job?
Yeah, it does. And when you're working at that level, like I said, in the conversation earlier, you're dealing with international players and Champions League winners, and that level of player, that pressure's always on me anyway. I spoke earlier about being hard on myself, and I feel that pressure to make sure that it's done right and professional and good sessions. Anyway, but actually went to that Champions League final as well last summer, and then I met up with a squad a day after. Then Andy come over, and that was good. It's good for the country, good for the squad.
And how was the ambience in the dressing room when Robertson came back as a Champions League winner?
Everyone stood up, give him a standing ovation and stuff like that. I remember playing with Roy Keane when I was with Republic, and you want to improve your own performance when you're training with players that are playing at that level and demanding it of everyone around them. That can only improve the squad. Hopefully soon to be Premier League winner as well. That will hopefully. I think that's done. I'm probably sitting in football mode.
Coronavirus hasn't got anything to say about that.
But yeah, when you've got that's going to be hopefully a big help to the squad in seeing Scottish players that are performing and delivering at that level. And let's not forget, a few years ago at Hull, a couple of years before that, playing in Scotland itself. So to see that progression hopefully gives other players that hope and belief that they can do the same.
So what's the feeling in the camp? As you alluded to, there's a massive game, March 26 against Israel, for all of the marbles, You know, it's win or bust kind of thing, semi-final. So how are you, Steve Clarke and Alex Dyche approaching that game?
Excited. It's been a long time since November. That was our last games, but we're actually on a decent run of results at the minute. Started off, was difficult, played Belgium and Russia twice and got heavily beaten in a few of those games, which was tough. But then we've kind of in a good place at the minute with the results we've had. And to be honest with you, this is one of them games where, you know, you might get asked a question, how can you motivate the people? It's the rewards. It's 22 years since last major tournament. For me, the highlight of my career is playing in the World Cup. I thought it was going to be every couple of years that I'll be playing in a tournament like Euros or what, but still the pinnacle of my career. And for these boys, it could be the same, playing in a major tournament. Most of them are sort of, they probably can't remember the last time that Scotland were in a major tournament because they were that young or not even born. So it can be one of the highlights of their career, and for all of us, it would be one of the highlights of my career if I can help, you know, us achieve that dream of getting there. But it's tough ask. Got Israel, which hopefully will be a sellout, and we know if that we perform how we can do with the players that we got a great chance. And then potentially a difficult final against Norway or Serbia, which will be away from home. But yeah, it's great opportunity.
Is there a feeling within the camp or, you know, in Scotland that, you know, you've got a golden generation coming up? Because when you look at the calibre of players, you know, most of them are playing in the Premier League or playing for Celtic or Rangers. So is there that feeling in the camp?
There's a good feeling. Not seeing too much about a golden generation. No, there's a real, you know, it's a good place to be. Good atmosphere in the squad. Similar feel to when I was involved in the Republic squad. You know, there's different players playing at different levels, which is good. It can hopefully inspire the players that are not playing Premier League football, for argument's sake, that maybe one day they can be a Champions League winner or Premier League winner or SPL winner. So no, the atmosphere is good. I think the last few results has helped that. We've got obviously, you know, a few of our players playing at some top clubs, you know, obviously in Scotland and in England as well. So yeah, there's a good feel. Hopefully now the key now is everyone, or as many players as possible, are fit for that squad announcement. Obviously, we had a bit of a setback with John McGinn getting his injury. Scott McTominay's back now from his. So we're hoping
Tierney's back in
training. So hopefully we've got everyone fit and available for the game. That's a key, because it's not the biggest pool of players that we have got. So it's important the ones we do have are fit and available for that game.
I've spoken to, you know, multiple Scotland fans, and they said, you know, the common consensus was that defensively you guys seem to concede a lot of goals. And the question I want to ask is, do you think you guys are closer to finding an internal solution? Because from the people that I've spoken to, they said that they don't feel that the centre-back partnership is working. So do you feel you need to look internally at a few youngsters coming through, or you feel you're closer to finding a solution with like Charlie McGrew and Grant Hanley?
Well, again, it's one for the players that are there to step up. It's obviously a couple of those games. Let's not forget we're playing against Belgium, the top team in world football at the minute, and the, you know, attacking threat that they've got. And Russia, we had a heavy defeat in Russia, but again, a top team. So yeah, it's a difficult one to look at, sort of players that have not been in and around the squad, especially in that position, to suddenly break into it for games of this magnitude. But yeah, I think the younger players, I think if there's an opportunity for them to perform and they're playing well, we're monitoring all players at the minute.
Is there any names that you can mention?
Any exclusives?
No. So we, you know, every week, me and the gaffer and a couple of the scouts are out gunning games and keeping tabs on the players. But yeah, it's going to be difficult at this moment in time for, you know, a lot of the young players to break in all of a sudden, especially for a game of this size. But you know, we're happy with what we've seen so far, and especially the last few performances and results have gone well. So we're hopefully going to look to build on that and win the big game, and then hopefully we got the second game to get to the Euros, and not forget be in England's group as well. So that'd be
tasty.
Some occasion, at Wembley if that was to happen. But just get Israel, hopefully a good result against them, then look forward to the next one.
Yeah, recently we saw the news this week of the UEFA Nations draw with obviously Israel, Slovakia and Czech Republic. So how are you and the staff viewing that draw? Was it favourable or was it tough? Or how do you see it?
Do you know what? It's one of the... every team now, in my opinion, has got top players. You're looking at some of the so-called weaker nations, going back years that, weren't great. But now a lot of these countries have got players playing in top leagues and top levels around the world. So look, at the minute, it's a case of getting the playoff game sort of hopefully done and dusted in a positive way, and then move on to the Nations League. But it's through the Nations League that we got this playoff game in the first place anyway. So it's a competition that we're gonna take really seriously because we've obviously found ourselves in this good position now of having the backup playoff game to potentially qualify. So we obviously know what a big tournament and what a big tournament that it is. So we'll face that head on.
100%. What I wanted to ask Stephen was, what is the key difference between managing and coaching at club level versus country?
It's probably, the main one would be the gaps in between. And then when you have actually got the players, a lot of the time, especially like the Celtic, Rangers boys and, the boys in the Premier League that play on a Sunday, for argument's sake, we actually play Celtic, and I think they've done an agreement now where there won't be a couple of games played on that Sunday because there's been international games where we play on the Thursday. Some of the players play on the Sunday, so you get 2 days pretty much recovery. So you're into Wednesday, day before a game's a light session.
Yeah.
Then you play the game, then your 2 days recovery. So it's actually getting enough sessions to do your proper work, not just a little warm up and the little bits and pieces, but doing real tactical work becomes difficult when you've got hardly any time with the players. So there's a lot of video work as information that gets sent out to the players, in between games now. And that's crucial. So you're not just turning up for camp. We've got Israel on Thursday and you know nothing about them. Over the last few months, we've been, sort of myself, the coaching staff and the support staff and analysts have been looking at all of these oppositions. So hopefully we're ready and in a good place. And getting information individually and unit-wise to the players to see what they're going to be coming up against. So we meet up and it's already in their mind and thinking about what's coming.
How is it tempering, those rivalries between, Rangers and Celtic when the players come into camp? How is it? Because I remember previously hearing about the England teams in the past. The Man United players won't get along with the Liverpool players. So how is it managing that?
Hasn't needed managing, to be honest. Like I said, there's a good atmosphere in the squad between the players. A lot of these players have played with and against each other since they were kids. So there's a really good feel about it. I obviously know about the England situation. I spoke along the way with a few of those England players, and there was those rivalries and egos and little cliques. But again, it's similar to how it was for me with the Republic, that people look forward to meeting up and getting together. And some play in England, some play in Scotland. We've got a couple of Ollie Burke's over in Spain at the minute. So it's actually a place where hopefully it's, especially with how it's gone in the last few games, you want to make it a place where the players want to come. I think, obviously, because it's been so long since qualifying for that tournament, there has been a negativity around the team and the country and that connection with the team. But you want to make it ultimately a place where the players can't wait to get over there and get up there and meet up.
Yeah, 100%. So how would you assess the standard of Scottish football? Because over this side, of the border, there's a lot of besmirching saying, Scotland, Celtic dominate. But my argument is, look at Liverpool here. So what do you think about the standard of football in Scotland?
It's a good standard. It's a really good standard. And from the players that are involved in the squad, they're playing and training at a really good level. Obviously, you have got that disparity between the top teams in the Scottish Premier League and the teams that obviously financially have not got the backing as the same as in the English league. But having spent a lot of time up there and going to a lot of games, it's a passionate league. There's players and a market there that I think sometimes they don't do it. Do it a disservice in the ability of players that are playing up there. You look at John McGinn playing at Hibs a few years ago. Aston Villa take the plunge, and now he's all sorts of figures being talked about and moves to top clubs in the English Premier League. So their talent's up there. We're seeing it firsthand. Well, I am, from going to games and seeing the players that are playing in Scotland and involved in the national team. So, really.
Van Dijk was only there a couple of years ago. I
think there is a little bit of a snobbery around the league, for sure. But like I say, I've been really impressed with what I've seen so far.
So what are your final thoughts? Have you got a message for the Scotland fans? We need them to show massive support in this big game coming up. So do you have just a message for them?
Well, the support is going to be crucial in this game. The games I've been involved in so far with the national team haven't been sellouts. At home so far. I was up in Scotland this week, and I'm hearing there's only a couple of thousand tickets left to sell. I went to the Scottish Cup final, the Celtic Rangers one a couple of months ago, and it was a sellout, and the atmosphere, it's night and day between when it's full and when it's half full. So, that can be a major boost for us if those last couple of tickets get sold and the team just fully get behind, the fans fully get behind the team. Hopefully we can get across the line.
Fingers crossed.
I think that would just give the country a massive, if we were to qualify, that would just give the country a huge lift and obviously shake off this 22 years that it's been since the last one. So, just get behind the team and hopefully it'll be a sellout.
100%.
I've got one more question. Recently it was announced that the Premier League are going to be introducing a Hall of Fame. So who would be your first two players inducted into the Hall of Fame in the Premier League that have retired?
You can't put yourself.
Definitely, I definitely wouldn't be going in there. For me personally, I played with him. Roy Keane would probably be one for me. There's so many, but off the top of my head, it's such a difficult one because there's a few that could go in there.
I can
quite
give
easily.
you some names if you want.
Thierry Henry might get in there.
Giggs, Shearer.
Giggs would have to be in there. Shearer would have to be spoken about. Top scorer of all time in the Premier League.
Steven Gerrard.
Rio. Terry.
Yeah,
they're all going to get in there at some point, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So
100%.
It'll probably be done in a way where I think all of those that you mentioned will definitely be maybe Giggs. Maybe Giggs in there for longevity of a career. The titles that no one's won more in the English game. So, I don't know. There's so many. There's so many.
We're gonna call it a day there. I think we're all going to be looking at that game in a couple of weeks in eager anticipation. On the edge of our seats, fingers crossed, toes crossed, and everything else. Looking forward to it though, 100%. Stephen, we just want to say a massive thank you again. We really appreciate you taking out the time to sit down with us and talk about the beautiful game.
That was amazing.
It was
brilliant insight. Brilliant
insight. And it was just fantastic. Just be able to sit down with you and talk about football. So listeners, we hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. We had a blast. We had a great time.
Loved it.
As always, continue to show your support by sharing the content amongst your friends, your family members, your work colleagues. If you're not yet following us on Twitter, please make sure you do. It's at podcast_TBG. You can also follow us on Instagram at pod_TBG. We always mention that we don't discriminate across platforms. So we are across Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. And if you are listening in on Apple Podcasts, please make sure you leave a 5-star review as well, because your engagement goes a long way to helping us move the product forward. So keep supporting. We've got bigger and better things on the way and coming. So stay tuned, stay locked. And I think we're gonna end it there.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Over and out. Thanks again, Stephen.
You.
Peace.